Israel and militant group Hamas have reached a deal for a ceasefire in Gaza to take effect on January 19, after 15 months of bloodshed that devastated the Palestinian enclave and inflamed the Middle East. The accord outlines a 6-week initial ceasefire with gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. Hostages held by Hamas, which controls Gaza, to be freed in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. This after several failed attempts at a ceasefire. Yet on another issue, the world had reached an accord virtually at the start of hostilities. The point of accord was in demarcating Gaza as a zone where virtually all nations agree children can be killed, maimed, starved, orphaned in thousands with impunity. The tormentors even pleaded self-defense and righteous indignation.
Israel's commitment to international law is unwavering. Equally unwavering is our sacred commitment to continue to defend our country and defend our people. The charge of genocide leveled against Israel is not only false, it's outrageous, and decent people everywhere should reject it.
On December 15, UNICEF reported 14,000 child deaths out of the total 45,000 deaths in Gaza. This does not include those unidentified, missing, or buried under the rubble. Till October 10th, 30% of the children killed were under the age of 5, 6% of the children killed were under the age of 1, and 169 children were born since the conflict began. By October 30, United Nations estimated 35,000 children lost one or both parents, and over 1 million children lost their homes. Like all inhabitants of Gaza, children are in various stages of starvation. War Child Alliance found 96% of children are mentally disoriented and in imminent fear of death. There is something monstrous in that a child should at all conceive of death, let alone fear it. The world knew what is happening but saw no reason to care, let alone intervene. Instead of growing outrage as child deaths kept mounting, the world seemed bored. Mind you, we're all nice people. Very many nations, including our own, shook their heads and clucked at civilian deaths, while conniving with the international order that made them inevitable.
The conflict in Gaza is of great concern to us all. The humanitarian crisis arising from conflicts require a sustainable solution that gives immediate relief to those most affected. At the same time, we must be clear that terrorism and hostage-taking are unacceptable, and efforts must also focus on seeking a two-state solution where Palestinian people can live within secure borders.
Certain nations actively upheld and protected that order. The US government joined the choric murmur against civilian casualties while sustainedly providing arms to enable them, at least twice by presidential waiver of the required Congress approval. The Israeli tail wagged the American dog. Besides outliers like Pope Francis, the only parties that seemed seriously concerned about children's plight were the United Nations and its agencies. But doesn't the United Nations speak for the world? It's clearly laughable to imagine so. The UN speaks for nobody except its own notional self. The nations that formally constitute it thumb their noses at its homilies. Over the years, the United States of America vetoed 49 resolutions seeking peace in the region, including 4 in the past year. India saw fit to abstain more than once from UN resolutions calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. More disturbingly, pro-Palestinian sentiments faced resistance and even prohibitions in India. Priyanka Gandhi's Palestine handbag was astonishingly linked to appeasement politics.
Decide what clothes I wear now? Who's going to decide that? That's the typical patriarchy.
Are we to refrain from commiserating with Palestinian children because they are Muslims? No less bizarrely, Yogi Adityanath had lauded Israel for providing Indians with jobs.
यूपी के अब तक लगभग 5,600 से अधिक नौजवान इजराइल गए हैं निर्माण कार्य करने के लिए, और हर नौजवान रहने का फ्री, खाने का फ्री और 1.5 लाख रुपए उसको वहां पे अतिरिक्त मिल रहे हैं और पूरी सुरक्षा की गारंटी भी है.
Surely the world's 5th largest economy with a population of 1.4 billion couldn't be so hard-pressed to condone horrific violence for the sake of a few thousand jobs? One is led to look for a deeper affinity of the spirit. But let us not be distracted by Israel's deeper wrongdoings. Its occupation of Gaza and West Bank violates international law. Recent deliberations of International Court of Justice and International Human Rights Council non-trivially evoke the terms genocide and crimes against humanity. The irony is that the current Gaza war began with an act of terrorism against Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking some 250 hostages. Parties generally critical of Israel express support and even outrage. But in little over a year, the Palestinian casualties were so dramatically greater that the Hamas attack on Israel lost its centrality in the discourse. The unrelenting suffering of the people of Gaza must be admitted before it is justified or even highlighted to emphasize fate that befalls those that provoke Israel. References to civilian deaths or collateral damage seldom specifically mention that victims included thousands of children. The deals between nations contravened the gut humanity that insisted, however silently and helplessly, on being horrendously disturbed that children should die in a war their uncorrupted spirits cannot understand. Foreign policy might be dictated by our export prospects, need for jobs, weaponry, or even spyware. But the ghosts of 14,000 dead children will plead for a world of humane values for our own children to grow up in. Young blood will keep haunting us.